All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with a Caribbean soul, refreshing German lager in a can. You pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba. That's how you enjoy Thursday Night Football. Tonight we get Week 16 getting started this evening. You have a cold Johnny in your hand. Pick up a six-pack. Your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us now is our pal, one of the hosts of Dolphins pregame, postgame show, the Fish Tank podcast, Seth Levit here with us. Seth, good to see you. And it's especially good to see you. You're in a much better mood than the last time I saw you, which was you posting a video, walking to your car in the parking lot at 2:30 in the morning after that disaster on Monday Night Football against the Titans. You were downtrodden that night, Seth.
I was. You should have reached out to me. I mean, if you saw me, I don't know when you saw it. If you saw it that night, if you were up at 2:30 in the morning, a good friend would have reached out and made sure I was okay, because it was rough. It was touch and go there. But Juice, he got me because we were leaving the studio together. They have for iHeart there, they've got a fort. We kind of sit in a fort now right by the Dan Marino statue. It's kind of cool. We get to see the fans walk by. It's cool when you win. When you lose and the opposing fans come up and they start banging on the window and everything and pointing at you like you're in a fishbowl, not necessarily the way we want to be. But, that was a tough night. But fortunately, the team responded. Mike McDaniel responded, and hopefully we responded as well.
I was at the game that night with my son. We bought the tickets in advance. I got him, for Hanukkah. We bought tickets, Monday Night Football. He'd never been to Monday Night Football before. I mean, just what a disaster. What a disaster that finish was. And it was such a beautiful night. The weather was great. And I got to tell you, and you could appreciate this because you were with the organization, 25 years ago, before all the renovations in the stadium. That stadium is such a pleasure now. It is beautiful. It is such a great stadium. Even getting in and out, it's now. Listen, I had one of the Mac Daddy parking passes, so I was lucky that night.
I was going to say, where do the ZASLOWs park, and where do the ZASLOWs sit? Because they do a great job at the stadium. There's no question.
Great question.
A little more great than others. Great
question. Well, of course, title sponsors ZASLOW Show 2.0, Anidjar and Levine. They set me up with the parking passes. I get that maroon parking pass right next to the helipad, so that's very convenient. We enter the stadium, through the F1 garage. All right, so that's really nice, But I'll tell you where I like to sit now that I've gotten a little bit older, we buy tickets whenever we go. We get upper deck front row.
Okay.
Beautiful. I love sitting in the front row in the upper deck. I don't have to stand. And you know where I like? I like in the corner where it's the only row, because then the bar is right above you, and you got people like the section right next to me. They're yelling, stand up, it's third down, stand up, cheer. I'm like, listen, man, I bought these tickets specifically so I don't have to stand up. I'm going to sit here and relax the whole game. Stand up, you waste your energy. I'm sitting. So that's where we normally like to sit. And it's such a great stadium.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job. That was a special night. Did you see the drone show? Did you see anybody?
Yeah.
That was one of the cooler things I've seen. So the shame was that it didn't pan out the way that we had hoped it would. It felt like it was going to, and then 3.5 minutes things fell apart. But Zaz, that was 2 games ago. We actually beat the hell out of the Jets after that. Can we focus on that?
I think we learned a lot about the team this past weekend, and I even said I thought this was, like, it may sound crazy when I say it, I think it was the best win of the season. Now, part of the reason it was the best win of the season is because they haven't beaten a team yet like the Cowboys or like the Ravens or like the Bills in these final 3 games. So we're going to have an opportunity for that. But I thought it was the best win of the season because of the way they bounced back from what could have been a devastating loss. And I thought it was a super high character win.
Yeah, I agree with that. Best one in the season, they all matter, but they definitely needed that one. That was OJ and I had a little bit, I don't want to call it a debate, but we had a conversation in the post game about, was it a must win? I don't like using the term must win unless it's an elimination game, But, I said it was a need to win, and I guess we can, split hairs there on semantics. But it was an important game. How would this team respond? They had all season long put themselves in a position to really cruise into an AFC East title and potentially an AFC conference title. It didn't work out for them that night against the Titans, but they did bounce back, and in a big way. It wasn't like they squeaked it out against the Jets. Think about how they had to beat the Jets the year before. Tua was out. Skylar Thompson did everything he could. They needed to get that 9th.
Oh, it's one of the worst games I've ever watched. What was it, 11-9?
Versus 30-0, running away with the thing, sending your dreaded rival with the fans that you just can't even stand, and send them all home with their chins in their chest. I mean, it was a big win for a lot of reasons, but Jimmy Johnson used to say, the more you win, every game gets bigger and more important. And that's exactly where we're at. Sorry about that party foul here. How do I not turn the phone off when I'm doing an interview?
That's all right. You know what's a thing that's happened with me throughout this season. I love when the defense is on the field now.
Yeah.
The offense, we know how good this offense is. All right.
Right.
But now when the defense is on the field, I love watching this defense. They look to be an elite defense now at this point of the season, and certainly where they came from at the beginning of the year, like the first 4 or 5 games, there was a lot of concern about the defense. Of course, you get Jalen Ramsey after that, and just, I guess, getting used to Vic Fangio's system and all of it. And I love when the defense is on the field, man. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, how great is it that you don't want to get up from your seat, regardless of what group is on the field? There have been times years and years ago where when the offense was on the field, you actually might get up, and that's when you run to the restroom or go get your hot dog. And then with this team, certainly last year, you definitely did not want to miss a single offensive snap. And they've followed up with that. But to see the defense step up as well is exciting. I read something. Actually, here it is. Joe Shad tweeted it. I have not fact-checked this. But it says when the Dolphins went to 3 straight Super Bowls in the 70s, winning twice, they finished top 10 in both offense and total defense in each of those seasons. In the 50 NFL seasons since, the Dolphins have repeated that feat only once. Currently, that's where they are right now. So, I mean, that's winning football. If you're top 10 in offense and defense, we hear all 3 phases. And yes, you'd like to see the special teams step up to that level as well. But when your offense and defense are playing the way they are now, and if they can do it on a consistent basis and against teams that are double-digit win teams, then you've got a chance to do something special.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because it always gets me when fans will say things like defense wins championships. And it's like, no, being really great at everything is what wins championships. You got to be great at offense. You got to be great at defense. You got to be great at special teams. You got to be really great at all the things to win a Super Bowl. And it feels like this team is like, I think they look like a Super Bowl team. Now, granted, we're gonna find out this week, starting this weekend. Give me your thoughts here on the race for the AFC's number 1 seed, because for me, after the Tennessee loss, I kind of jumped off that bandwagon. What I mean by that is I'm more focused right now on winning the AFC East.
Right.
Winning the AFC, that's secondary at this point, because the AFC East is absolutely back in play. It would not be crazy for the Dolphins to lose one of these next 2 games. These are tough games. The Bills are going to win their next 2 games. Chargers, Patriots, give me a break. So Week 18's probably shaping up for winning the division, possibly first place for the Dolphins side, possibly first in the AFC. So I'm more focused on that than I am the number 1 overall seed right now.
Yeah, well, I think everybody needs to be, and quite honestly, you kind of heard it from some of the guys in the locker room that their focus got away from it, got bigger than just the next game against Tennessee. That was part, you heard some guys talk about they overlooked the team, which you never like to hear that. But there was all of a sudden this talk about you're in first place for the conference, home field advantage. All of those things are great, but you still have to take care of business each and every week. And so absolutely winning the division should be the primary focus. And if you win the division and you kick ass the entire, the remainder of your schedule and win the division, win out, then the other things take care of themselves. So I think you're spot on there.
How about that clip of Mike McDaniel on Hard Knocks this week? I feel like I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of media people around the
Bring it
league
on.
too have
Yeah.
taken notice of it, where this is, because there are coaches out there who don't, like to necessarily shoulder the blame. And Mike McDaniel certainly knows the cameras are in there for Hard Knocks, and he knows people are going to see it. And man, like, he is shouldering the blame after that loss against Tennessee. I thought it was a pretty impressive look for him.
I thought so as well. And I mean, let me say shouldering the blame. He took responsibility for the things he's responsible for. And he just seems like a really authentic guy. He always, everything you've gotten from him, it just seems like he's his authentic self. And I think he's encouraged his players to be authentic as well. But yeah, if you just go out there and I have to imagine, and I haven't sat in those meetings. I think my partner OJ has. And if a coach gets up there and just tells you that everything you did sucked and takes no blame, that players know when they didn't play well, but they also know when maybe as a coach you could have done some things differently as well. And so if a coach doesn't take ownership of that, it doesn't sit well with the roster. And this coach is, not only do I think the guys respond to it and appreciate it, but I think it makes them more accountable as well. And I love that. Hey, did I call some trash plays? Yeah, I called some trash plays. But then all of a sudden he's showing Xavier Howard, biting on something that he shouldn't have. And he's showing guys like, hey, this is an all-pro player that made this mistake. And it's almost like you can get away with doing that once you've stood up there and kind of said, hey, here's where my flaws are as well. So everything he seems to do from an emotional intelligence standpoint seems to be spot on. The fact that we're even using words like emotional intelligence when we're talking about a head football coach in the National Football League, that in and of itself is a unique and refreshing thing. I don't know that I bought into it during the coaching search, but I'm all in now.
So we're hitting the most important stretch of the season, obviously, this weekend. Cowboys are here. It's in that 425 slate, pretty much the entire country is getting the game. You're getting the top box crew, Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson. This is a major game this weekend. And, it's going to go a long way toward Dolphin fans all year. They get mad about the national media calling the Dolphins that they're frauds and what have you. And it's like, look, you don't really have a leg to stand on until you prove otherwise. Sure. And they got that chance now this weekend. Like now is finally the opportunity for this Dolphin team. If you want everybody to stop calling you a fraud, that situation is going to take care of itself this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Let me say this first, because I was out on record. I didn't like the term fraud either. I think that if you felt that they weren't as good as you thought they were, I was okay with that. Fraudulent to me means something different. I'm a big believer in that words matter. And fraudulent means you're representing yourself as one thing, but you're actually something else. So you have this intent to deceive. I'm like, no, in the National Football League, you're exactly who you put on film. And so everything they put on film is who they were. They were beating the hell out of teams that were sub 500. And when they played teams that were above 500, the record told you exactly who they were. So that wasn't fraudulent to me at all. Having said that, could you question whether or not they were legitimate contenders? That was fair. It continues to be fair. And like Mike McDaniel said, if you want to change the narrative, well, change the damn narrative then. So they need to win a game like this to get people to believe. But I also am of the opinion that I don't think, who cares if anybody believes, because this isn't college football. They don't, you don't, whatever happened to FSU, and as a Gator, I don't really care. Too bad, guys. Sorry, even though you probably got the short end of the stick. That doesn't happen in the National Football League. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of you. Your record dictates it. Either your record was good enough to get you in the playoffs or to win the division or to get the home field advantage, or it wasn't. And then you've got to pay the piper in the next time you step on the field and prove that you were worthy of that spot. But nobody has to vote for you. Nobody has to like you. Everybody can hate you as a team. Personally, I like when my football team feels like they're backed into a corner and everybody hates them. But, so whether or not the media jumps on or off the bandwagon really doesn't matter, or at least it shouldn't matter. Having said that, is the narrative fair? It's absolutely fair until they prove otherwise.
What do you think the crowd's going to look like this weekend? We know it's going to be packed, but Cowboy
I told you
fans,
OJ's in the back room. You're going to get them all fired up. He's wrapping Christmas presents, and now he's going to start sweating when you say nothing. OJ hates more than walking into the Miami Dolphins Hard Rock Stadium and seeing the opposing team's colors like in waves. And listen, Dallas, whether it makes you sick here in America's team or not, people grew up on the same guy I just talked about. OJ McDuffie talks about how he grew up on the Dallas Cowboys. They're a team that has always played in prime time. They have that big star. They kind of invented what the NFL cheerleader is supposed to be. All of those things, right? Dallas, they're a big time team in terms of popularity, and they have passionate fans. And we're going to see, you probably have people that like the Dolphins, but they love the Cowboys, and they might root for the Dolphins every week except for this one because they've been waiting 5 years for this opportunity. So I think it's a long-winded way of saying, yeah, there's going to be a lot of blue and silver, and that's okay because you're also going to have a lot of orange and aqua. The Dolphins fans have really gotten behind this team this year. We've seen it on the road. I think they're really loud and raucous in the stadium. And as long as the team gives them something to play for, you'll hear them, and hopefully we can shut those Cowboys fans up early.
23 years since the Dolphins have won a playoff game. Do you remember? Now you were working for the team in the PR department at the time. Yeah. Can you put yourself back in that moment? I mean, I think it's probably, it's the Lamar Smith game. If you're old enough to remember it, I remember exactly where I was watching it. It was an amazing experience. Fiedler with the comeback in the second half after a miserable first half. Vanderjagt misses a kick that would have won it. Goes to overtime. Lamar Smith, who had the game of his life and was just steamrolling dudes in overtime. Do you remember where you were when the Dolphins won their last playoff game?
Absolutely. So I was on the sidelines, dressed to the nines back when I could fit into my suits. And I would go down with the last 8 minutes of the game. I'd go down with Harvey Green, who was the PR director, who shout out to Harvey, who just got selected by the Pro Football Hall of Fame as one of their award winners where they recognize contributors to the game. And Harvey would be on the sidelines, and he would have to go with the head coach. And then I would have to chase down whoever the television network has chosen as the kind of the player to be interviewed, player of the game deal, where you see that on-field sideline reporter. And so I'm standing on the field on the sidelines, and, the momentum is starting to swell in the Dolphins' favor. And you're thinking, wow, we got this chance. He did, as you said, Vanderjagt missed that kick. Lamar was unstoppable. And he bounces off there, goes kind of off tackle to the right there. And he steamrolls, the offensive line steamrolls. There's a great picture, OJ jumping over dudes into the end zone there and waving one finger in the air, and Richmond Webb's running down. And Richmond was the guy I ended up having to get. And I just remember running on the field, and I typically would try to control my emotion and be a professional, but I was pumping my fist and kind of sprinted 40 yards to chase Richmond down to get him on television. And yeah, it was a memory I'd never forget. I was hoping that maybe it would be wiped out by a few more playoff wins since then, but it just hasn't been.
It'll be so great if they can win this division and finish at least number 2, where then you're getting 2 home playoff games.
Yeah.
Like just the whole atmosphere. And it's been 23 years since they've won a playoff game. It's been, you got to go back 92, the last time they were in the AFC Championship game. So also the time that they won a divisional playoff game. I was at that game, 31-0 against the Chargers there back in 92. Keith Jackson, great game in the pouring rain.
Front row upper deck though back then.
Oh, and no, we were like 15 rows upper deck, for that game, me and my father. And of course, that was the last time they were in the AFC Championship game where they got killed by Buffalo. And I want, as we get older, right, Seth, it's not even as much about the team winning the whole thing. Like I experienced this last season with the Heat and the Panthers. Neither of them won the whole thing, but it was as much fun I've ever had as a sports fan because it's about the moments, right? And so we want to get to the postseason here and get those moments because, yes, the Lamar Smith game is an amazing memory, but that can't still be the greatest moment of my life. It's not good enough.
It can't. No, and hopefully like kids and weddings and those things are up there as well. But yeah, absolutely. And I believe this team is ready to make new memories for folks. I believe that this team is ready to do things that fans that are younger are going to be having a similar conversation that you and I are having now, decades from now. So I think they're poised and ready to do it. Hopefully it starts this year, but they're building something really special. I think from top down in the organization, the type of players they're bringing in, the caliber of football players they are, the caliber of people they are. I love what this coaching staff is doing, not just Mike McDaniel, but across the board. Although I think people are going to start to pluck coaches off of this staff for some bigger opportunities. But all of that just means that things are heading in the right direction and you're successful. So I'm excited about it. I do hope that this is a year where we can stop saying, oh, we haven't won a playoff game since Lamar Smith. I really do hope that this is that year. And I think they've got a good chance to make that happen. But they got, they have to make it happen. It's not going to happen just because we want it to.
So, Seth, you guys caught my attention a couple days ago because the Fish Tank podcast, you and OJ McDuffie, you guys get great guests. And you guys had Marino this week, right?
We did, yeah. So we've been very fortunate, Zaz, to get, as you said, great guests. But this was the guest of all guests, right? If you're doing a Miami listen, if you're doing any podcast and Dan Marino's your guest, you're going to do big numbers. But if you're doing a Miami Dolphins podcast and you choose who are the guests that you want to have on, Dan Marino's right at the top of the list. And we've been lucky. My boss, right, Jason Taylor's been on. Zach Thomas has been on a couple times. Larry Zonka has even been on. We've had, true Dolphins legends. Mike McDaniel and Tua have been on. Last year they were both on, especially now with us being part of the Miami Dolphins podcast network. But we've been waiting for Danny. Man, have we been waiting for Danny. And we always knew it would happen. He gave us his word it would happen. He loves OJ to death. He tolerates me. But, he thinks the world of OJ. He told Juice that he would do it. But it just all came together this year. And it was really cool because, he was drafted in 1983. This is now 2023. So 40-year anniversary of him being drafted. We're doing something pretty cool on the 1994 game where he comes back for the first time after the Achilles. So that we didn't talk about that much. We talked about it a little bit in this interview, but we're doing something really special about that because next year will mark the 30-year anniversary of that game. I say next year, but 2024 is right here on top of us, isn't it? But look, man, it's Dan Marino. You have a podcast and you roll out there with Dan Marino. We just got a new set for the Fish Tank at the Baptist Health Studios there over at the Dolphins camp. And Danny was great. And I think what I liked most about it and what we really love about this show is guys seem to enjoy being on the show. It's not – maybe he said yes as a favor, but by the end of it, he had a good time. He remembered things that were important to him. He talked about things that were fun. He laughed. He showed a side of himself. That's been the biggest comment. People are like, wow, Danny, I haven't seen him that loose before. I'm like, well, that's Dan. That's the Dan that we all see. But the public sees not they only see one particular side of him because he is so polished and he does have so much responsibility to himself and his foundation and his name and the team. And so, you don't always see him let his hair down, so to speak, but he did it a little bit more on this show. We thought it was great. Everybody's saying they wish it were longer. They can't wait for him to come back in. They might have to wait a little while for him to come back in the Fish Tank. But I thought we got a hell of an interview. And look, you're a podcaster. It's fun when you go check the charts and you're like, oh, we just made the top 200 charts. Oh, we're number 50 overall in football podcasts right now, thanks to Dan Marino. It's not because of me. So it's been really cool. If people haven't listened to it, please go check it out. Danny, we titled the episode, Pick a Guy, Let It Fly. It's one of the great lines that Dan's ever had and continues to have. But it was kind of everything we could ask for in a guest.
As someone who grew up watching Marino and grew up with those Dolphin teams, it bothers me when, you run into, and there's nothing that can be done about it, but a 25 or even a 30-year-old Dolphin fan trying to explain to them, you have no idea how amazing this guy was. And They have no idea. They never got – you're a huge Dolphin fan. How could you be a huge Dolphin fan? You never got to see Marino. It's wild to me.
It is wild, but it's also wild that he still is able to command the respect and move the needle the way he does. And, there's a lot of different reasons why all the stuff he's done off the field, all the stuff he's done, Ace Ventura. There's different reasons why people are connected to Dan Marino. But just go back to 1984, man. I said this to him on the show. If you threw for 5,084 yards and 48 touchdowns this year, right now, he would be the runaway MVP. There would be no conversation. That's with 17 games. That's with all of the rules to protect quarterbacks. That's with all the rules where you can't touch receivers. Yeah. If you not saying people have broken those records, but if right now any Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Tua, any of the quarterback, Brock Purdy, if you had 5,084 yards and 48 touchdowns, you're the runaway MVP.
It'd be 6,060 today is what
he did it in 1984, man.
Yeah.
He did it in 1984. It was unheard of back then. And it was cool. We asked him, did you have any, like, could you even feel the magnitude of what you were doing, or were you just in the moment? And he's like, Seth, we were just rolling. It's just that we were just rolling, man. We were just doing what we did. So it was really cool. It was a cool experience for me as a fan, as someone who grew up just like you did, watching Dan. It was a great experience as a podcaster. And if you're just a football fan in general, it's a super cool interview.
Seth, tell everyone how they could download the episode.
Well, the Fish Tank, you go to Apple, you go to Spotify, you go to MiamiDolphins.com, you can go to thefishtank81.com, really anywhere that you would want to stream a podcast, you can find us. The Dolphins also did a beautiful job. If you prefer to see it and not just stare at two guys that look like me and ZASLOW, but you want to see Danny on the screen, you can go to YouTube. The Dolphins did an amazing job of putting together, intercutting the highlights with some of the great stories that he told. So the interview is also up on YouTube. It's kind of everywhere, and people are finding it, and it's been great. So check us out.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Great job, man. Again, you can listen to Seth, obviously, pregame, postgame, Dolphins Radio Network, and of course, all the episodes of the Fish Tank podcast with our pal OJ McDuffie. Great job, Seth. Appreciate it, man.
That, Zaz. Thank you. Can I ride with you? You seem to have better parking than me. Can I jump in with the ZASLOWs and get it?
Yeah. You hop in that back seat. Let's go. Shotgun is taken. You hop in the back seat.
I'll get in the trunk if it means I can get closer to the stadium.
Great job, Seth. Thank you, man.
Thank you, my man. Take care. Happy holidays.
You too.
Thanks.